Welcome back. We're discussing the much anticipated speech of President Barack Obama in Cairo. And joining me are Dr. Saiduddin Ibrahim, an Egyptian human rights activist, and Ambassador Thomas Pickering, former U.S. Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs. Ambassador, I'm going to throw a whole string of questions to you,
Sure.
Following Nasser's comments from Jordan there about the Palestinian issue. A couple of emails here that we had, reflecting many that we got. One from Algeria first, from Hassan Amr, who says, The Arab peace proposal is clear. Israel should withdraw to the 67 line and the Arab world will establish diplomatic relations. The comedy is that this speech will be portrayed as a victory to get Arabs to accept established settlements. Another one from Canada says, I think it's time to put pressure on Israel to make gestures to the Arab world. Israel has been masterfully using negotiations to its advantage while Arabs have been giving and giving and receiving nothing. And just one that came from the chat room also says, how do you respond to criticism that Obama's recent agreement with Egypt with Egypt to help maintain an iron grip on the Gaza border contrasts significantly with calls for Palestinian autonomy?
These are all tough questions, and they all have a lot to do with where we go. What I think I would recall first is that the president was very balanced. Netanyahu came to Washington and didn't accept a Palestinian state. The president was very deliberate, very straightforward, and very strong. Secondly, as you know, the whole question of settlements, not just enlargement, but settlements themselves, was addressed by the president in one very clear sentence. We don't agree with it, that they should continue. That, in my view, are very, very important markers. The president cannot solve in one speech every issue that's out there, as hard as it is. And certainly the question of Gaza is a very difficult one, but just look at what he said about Hamas, how different that is than where the U.S. was, a year ago. He said they ought to meet conditions, but he also said they get a lot of support, which in a backhanded way says they can't be ignored, which was kind of something that people were saying for a while about this set of issues.
That's an interesting thing. That the Bush administration said that the last 60 years had seen the U.S. choose stability in the Middle East over democracy, and so they supported democracy and got Hamas. How worried are you that the Obama administration may go for stability over democracy, and using that tact, might?
I don't think if they're wise, they will go so far in any one direction as necessarily to put us in a pendulum situation. But I don't know. But I'm hopeful. I know George Mitchell is a very wise man. I know the president is very wise. And taking this into extremes is something that if you read this speech, you cannot believe will be a trap they will easily fall into. They've been very cautious about that. And the president is, in my view, very balanced, very centrist on these questions. He looks at both questions in a way that says, if we treat Israel this way, we must treat the Palestinians in exactly the same way. This is a standard that hasn't been quite set before, and it's a very unusual one. And I hope people in the region will take heart that you've got a president who's now extremely balanced in his efforts to try to deal with these questions.
Well, Professor, I've got a question for you that came from Pakistan by email, if I may, sir, from Amina Wasif, who says, I don't know about real change, whatever that means, but it certainly helps if you take some of the most important political issues, like the Palestinian issue, head on. And I was disappointed that he didn't really condemn the Gaza massacre by Israel, but overall it was a really good speech. Now, I wonder, was that a missed opportunity, do you think, Professor, that President Obama could have really said something that would have made a difference? The Gaza issue was one that plagued him in his pre-inauguration era.
Of course, we as Arabs and Muslims have deep grievances, and he knows that, and that's why he prefaced his speech that no single speech or even a single American president can correct everything, can address all the grievances. However, he is starting a process, and the process of reconciliation and healing, and he went a long way toward truth and reconciliation in that sense by admitting some of the past American mistakes, especially with regard to Iran, bringing down an elected government of Dr. Mossadegh. So as much as an American president can go, he has gone. And in my opinion, he is the one who has the best opportunity to address many of these problems if continued on that path, and if he gets reciprocal responses from the Arab and the Muslim world.
Let's get Solomon on the line from Ireland, who's been waiting very patiently. Solomon, thank you for that. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My question is regarding this speech of President Obama and the Muslim world, the message he has. I think it about Iran. It's not about I mean, it's not about the Palestine peace, and it is not about what is going on in Pakistan. It is not about what is going on in Somalia. It is about Iran, and to isolate Iran and divide Muslim world.
Interesting point, Solomon. Let me put that to the professor. Is it possible, of course, with his reference to Iran, he seemed to be far more conciliatory towards Iran than obviously his predecessor. What do you think about this idea? Solomon says that there's a move to try to isolate Iran, through his bonds with the rest of the Arab world.
I do not think so. I think he is probably trying to help the moderates in Iran, especially with an election coming in few weeks, to by sounding reconciliatory and willing to recognize the legitimate interests of Iran, both as a regional power and also as a country that's entitled to develop nuclear capacity for peaceful purposes. So in that sense, he said actually better than I had expected him to say on the subject. And therefore, I do not really think that he is trying. He is truly trying to mobilize support for his approach in reconciliation and in seeking common grounds and middle grounds to resolve conflicts. And of course, this is a long way, but he is capable. He is a great communicator. And from the reports I got from Cairo after the speech, people were mesmerized by his speech in the big hall of Cairo University. The number of applause he got.
Right, let's get a quick call in from Hakeem.
Of that.
Thank you, Professor. Hakeem in Germany has been waiting too patiently. Go ahead, Hakeem.
Yeah, thanks very much, Riz Khan. Most really appreciate the opportunity
Thank you.
Al Jazeera has given for people to have a discussion over the speech delivered by President Obama today.
Okay.
I think the guy has actually done a very sincere work, and he has spoken to the House of Muslims and the leaders in the Arab world. He has told them the plain truth, the truth that the Arab leader themselves supposed to be telling others. But because they have decided to rule their people, they have decided to rule their nation in such a tyrannical way that has breeded so much hatred among the people that have made them so become tyrannized.
Okay, Hakeem, that's good actually. Thank you for that comment. Hakeem's impressed with the way that Barack Obama has covered so much ground. And if I could put this, Ambassador, this question to you from Kevin in Canada, who in the live station chat room sent in a message. And actually we've had a lot of SMSs on the same question. Following the speech with so many good intentions, what is the next step in transforming these words into concrete action?
It's a very, very good point. And of course, it's a central question for the administration to see how to move ahead. I think the next steps obviously have to be a series of much tighter engagements between his special envoy, Mr. Mitchell, and the Israelis and the Palestinians to see whether a process can begin. He's now set out some of the basic parameters. We all know that there are questions like Jerusalem, there are questions like security, there are questions like borders that have to be engaged in. I'm not sure that it would be a wise idea, for example, to enter into an endless negotiation with the Israelis over settlements. It may be that we and the Israelis will have to differ very, very strongly, and that our differences will inform our view about where the border will be drawn, and that's quite significant and very, very important as to where things go ahead. I'm concerned that obviously we not spend 4 years trying to stop settlements and get no peace process going. So those will be the questions, and he will have to go, I think, for the core issues as soon as he can.
Ambassador, though he was clear in stating America's support for Israel and says that's a tie that won't be broken, do you think that there's a subtle message to Israel that kind of goodwill, that kind of leniency that America has given Israel, that time has run out?
I think so, and I think that a man like President Obama could say basically, our view is in your own interest. If you want a Jewish and democratic state, you can't continue to try to settle the West Bank with kind of increasing proliferation and expect at the end that you will end up with a Jewish and democratic state. I think he's also saying, if you want a Jewish and democratic state, which is what we're attached to, and it's very important, then you have to make room in the region for a Palestinian state.
Ambassador Thomas Pickering and Professor Saad Eddin Ibrahim, thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And thank you for being with us. On the next show, we look at results from Lebanon's election. Now remember, you can also follow our show on Facebook and on Twitter at AJ Riz Khan. That's it from me and the team. We'll see you next time.